I became a BIM coordinator within a year of working full-time in the industry, and I doubled my salary because of it. Now I run a BIM training company that helps architects and engineers learn the BIM management and BIM coordination skill set and level up in their careers. So in this video, what I'm going to do is break down step by step how to learn everything related to BIM quickly so that you can start learning it and position yourself as an expert in the field before the AI revolution takes over in the next few years. And I'm going to do this by teaching you this in 3 ways, right? Let me just change the camera here. So the first thing I'm going to do is explain the current state of the market and where you need to be in order to take advantage of the growth over the next few years with the AI revolution. The next thing is then I'm going to explain the whole BIM workflow that's currently being used in the US, the UK, Europe, and Australia, because I actually work one-on-one with people from all these different places, so I know exactly what's being used, and I'm going to explain that in this video. After that, I'm going to explain to you the BIM software stack so that you can learn those things and you can put it on your CV, on your portfolio, and you can actually showcase that to employers. And so you actually understand when you're in interviews how to speak and what to speak about, right? And if you stay until the end, I'm going to reveal to you what your BIM portfolio should look like. I'm going to show you examples of my BIM portfolio, my clients' BIM portfolios, so that you should actually be able to understand after you watch this video what that looks like, right? Because you probably won't understand it right now, but watching this video systematically from start to finish is going to give you the knowledge and develop the foundations of BIM coordination and management that's going to allow you to see those portfolios and actually understand what it means. And you can actually just copy and paste that if you want it in the future, right? So don't skip until the end, because I've actually planned this video strategically in order to systematically develop your knowledge from start to finish so that you can actually learn BIM coordination and BIM management. And I say BIM management because it's not only BIM coordination that I'm teaching, I'm also teaching the whole BIM workflows in this whole video. So you'll not only know BIM coordination, but you'll know BIM management workflows and how everything ties in the industry. So you actually have the insider knowledge when you're going into interviews, so you know what to speak about, right? So this video is going to be for you if you're one of the following. If you're brand new to the BIM industry and you have not ever worked. Number 2, if you're working as an architect, engineer, estimator, and you hate the mundane nature of the work and you can't even envision yourself working the next 10 to 15 years in the office that you currently work at or in the same industry or the same job that you're currently working at, and you want to switch into BIM coordination and BIM management because you've seen that come up recently as a really strong career prospect, right? Number 3, if you're currently working as a BIM modeler and you want to become a BIM manager. Number 4, if you want to maximize your skills in the industry with BIM before you start your own company in the next 5 to 10 years. Because I work with a lot of people one-on-one that actually just want to learn this BIM skill set, want to maximize their skill set because they, in the next 5 to 10 years, want to start their own companies. And for that, they actually need to know the whole skill set, because otherwise, how are you meant to wear all the hats in the starting stages of your company? And so learning this is really critical because we're at a very key inflection point in the industry where we're developing and we're integrating AI technology with the construction industry, and sort of the standard is increasing now, right? So why should you watch this video from start to end without skipping and stopping? And I want to make a really compelling argument for this because everything that I've learned in the industry working full time is what I put in this document: BIM coordination, BIM management, all the workflows. And everything that I've learned is what I actually put into my one-on-one program, and I've taught people like Arushi, who became a BIM coordinator within 3 months of learning all of this, Jana, who became a BIM coordinator within 2 months of learning all of this, Eureka, who became a BIM coordinator within 2 months of learning all of this, right? And especially Eureka, she had never worked a job ever before. She was coming from university. She learned everything which I had learned, put in my program, and she became a BIM coordinator. So everything which I've learned, which allowed me to become a BIM coordinator within 1 year, is what I then taught people in my program for them to then become BIM coordinators within 3 months, okay? And so that is what I'm revealing in this video, and that's why it's so important for you. And I promise that I will give you a very good return on your attention if you watch this from start to the end, right? So before we start, let's get started. What did I say I was going to do first? Explain the current state of the market and where you need to be in order to take advantage of the growth in the next few years. For me to explain this to you, I need you to understand what the definitions are of BIM and what I actually mean when I say BIM. Because if I say BIM and you have a different understanding of it, none of this is going to make sense. So I'm going to explain to you from my perspective, from what I've seen in the industry, what I perceive and believe BIM to be, and how everything works, right? So ask yourself this question: when the government or a rich person wants to construct a huge building, what is the process that we go through? This diagram actually shows the process. When we want to build a building and someone has an idea, we go through 2 big phases: a design phase and a construction phase. The design phase is where we have the architects and the engineers and the consultants. And these are just the people that are coming together and creating sort of like the prototype or the overall idea of the building. What happens then is we go into, after everything has been developed and built and sort of like modeled out and thought about on a high level, we then go into the construction phase. This is when we actually have people go on site and actually build this whole building. You have the tradies and the contractors and all these people, right? So you have architects and engineers in the design phase. And in the construction phase, you also have engineers and you also have the architect, but you have more contracting people and people that are people on site, laborers and all those people that go put the hard hats on and actually build the buildings and stuff like that, right? So you have a design phase and a construction phase. In order for these two phases to be tied together, we use BIM. And BIM is the whole process that we use in order to make sure the design phase is going smoothly and the construction phase is going smoothly. And even during the construction phase, to make sure that the construction phase, if we're asking questions from the design team, everything is sort of glued together really nicely. And so you probably know that before we release some medicine even to the public, right? We do a lot of testing to make sure that the medicine works. And it's gone so far as like we do like animal testing on specific things. But the whole idea I'm trying to say is we do testing on specific things before we release it to the public. And if we can test specific things and iterate and understand how things work, that is when you have a very successful project or a successful outcome for a specific thing, right? So before a scientist invents something new, he does a lot of simulations and tests to make sure that the new invention is something that is working in the current conditions. Similar to this process, before we construct a building in real life, we try to virtually construct the building through a computer. And what that means is we have 3D models as a prototype or a test before we actually go on site and build this from scratch. And if we're hypothetically able to prototype a 3D model of the building before we even step foot on site, wouldn't that mean that any potential risks or issues have been identified beforehand, right? So imagine that for a whole building, we're able to make this building virtually on a computer. We're able to see if there's any clashes, if there's any issues, right? Is the ceiling height good enough? Does it have to be lower? Does it have to be increased, right? Is there enough space? We can actually see all these things on a computer so that we don't actually have to go and build this on site and then come into some issues and then have to rebuild it later on. We can actually do it virtually on a computer, and if there's issues, we can resolve it, and then we can step foot on site with everything resolved, right? So it's sort of like a construction simulation. This whole process of simulating this construction process in the 3D space, in the 3D world, is what BIM is, okay? So BIM is pretty much a collection of programs and systems we put together in order to successfully create a simulation of the building, a 3D prototype, before we actually construct this building on site. So you can see here an example, right? You can see here that, we talked about over here the design phase and the construction phase. You have engineers, you have architects, you have structural engineers, you have consultants, you have all these different teams that are working together to build the outcome, which is going to be the building. Down here, you can see that we have HVAC, fire, plumbing, structure. You have these different models. And the plumbing guy doesn't know anything about fire. The fire guy doesn't know anything about architecture. The architect doesn't know anything about the MEP services, right? And so these people independently have their own modeling or simulation or their 3D modeling and design. If they have their 3D modeling design, what we then do is we then try to put it together and simulate it over here where we've combined it all together, and we try to see, okay, are there any issues that we are seeing, right? Does the architect have any issues with the MEP stuff? Does the MEP people have any issues with the architectural ceiling heights or the structural slabs, or is there space, right? The whole process of doing this, combining the models, collaborating with each other, modeling this in the first place, that is what BIM is. So BIM is not an individual program. It is an umbrella of this whole process. And that's why I'm trying to explain to you the BIM management the BIM management workflow in this whole video, right? And so this is, I want to explain to you all the programs that come together in order to form this whole process, which allows you to go from individual models to then combining it all into one, right? So this has only become more advanced in the last couple of years because of the developing technology and computers that are able to handle modeling, right? All this stuff where we have these individual models and then we're sort of combining it into one model and then we're trying to simulate and see if there's any issues. We couldn't do this in like 2010, 2009, 2008 because we didn't have technology as developed. We didn't have the computers as developed, right? We were barely able to run any games on our computer. Now we have really advanced graphics cards. We have advanced cloud systems. Everything is becoming cheaper. Like technology technology is becoming better. So we're actually able to do way more visualization and simulation and stuff like that on the computers. And because of this is why BIM is becoming so popular, and it is going to become way more popular because of AI and how technology is developing and evolving, right? So from 2000 to 2015, we only had the computational power to do things like 2D drawings using a simple program like AutoCAD. And you probably know this. It's just drawing lines and 2D stuff. And architects would have created their floor plans on this 2D program. Engineers would have created their floor plans on this 2D program. We have floor plans, we have like section views, but we weren't able to really see things in 3D as well, right? And since computers have become so developed in the last decade, the industry is now shifting to making 3D simulation and modeling the norm. This has already happened. And this is why you're seeing people not using AutoCAD as much, and they're using Revit as much. But now, you're not only using Revit, but you're using Revit with the BIM Coordination and Management Program suite, which we all have to learn, right? Think about it like when we used to have Microsoft Word, because Microsoft Word used to be really, really popular. And it is still popular, but the thing is now Google Docs is more popular. It's whatever I have over here on my screen, right? We used to have Microsoft Word locally on your computer, but now we use Google Docs, which is much simpler to use, and it allows us to easily share documents and collaborate with other people. The only difference is that Google Docs is much simpler, it's easy to learn. However, learning BIM starts to become very complicated, but you can sort of see the logic behind why we would opt for an online collaborative platform rather than have a local non-collaborative program, right? So what I mean by that is you have individual people that do their own modeling in their own offices. So the architect will be in their own office doing the modeling, the fire person will be in their own office doing the modeling. What happens is at some point we want to combine these together, or the architect wants to see the fire person's model, but they don't want to like go to their office, or they don't want them to send an email, or they don't want them to get it periodically. There has to be a way that we can collaborate in one and we can see each other, right? So look at this. If I go to this Google Doc and I click this share button, I can actually add people into this, into my Google Doc. And when I add people into my Google Doc, they get the link in order to come and collaborate with me live. They can change something on here, they can add comments, I can change something, they can see it happen and I can see it happen at the same time. What we used to have was I used to have to go here to file, used to have to like download this as a Word document or a PDF, send an email to someone, they used to get it on their computer, then they would open it on their computer, make the changes, send it back to me, and then we would send it back and forth like ping pong, right? Now we don't do that because we have the collaborative online platform. And so that's what BIM is, that's what's happening with BIM. We're not only using Revit, we're not using the 3D modeling programs, we're finding ways to use the 3D modeling programs and integrate it with the online collaboration platform, similar to how I'm having this Google Doc over here and I can just send this to you. I can put this in the link in the description and I can put a link there and you can actually see this, and if I change this and I delete anything on here, you'll be able to see it updated, right? So that is the power of like the cloud-based softwares and the cloud-based solutions that is being developed because of the AI revolution and because of this situation and because of technologies developing so quickly. That is why BIM is growing so rapidly, right? And so that is what I want you to try and understand what BIM is. It's a collection of programs that allows you to do this whole process of collaborating and modeling and solving issues in the construction industry. You don't need to know anything other than the fact that we virtually construct a building using a series of 3D modeling software, a series of collaboration softwares, and a series of coordination softwares. So there's like three types. There's programs for modeling, programs for collaborating, and programs for coordinating. And I'll explain what these three are, right? Learning every single one of these modeling programs, coordination programs, and collaborating programs is what learning BIM actually means, right? Learning BIM means you learn every single one of these, and these three actually talk to each other. So we find ways to learn all of these models, all of these programs that encapsulate this whole BIM workflow. And that's all that BIM is, right? And so what are all these different BIM programs and how do I know which ones I have to learn? Because you're probably thinking, okay, you've explained to me what BIM is. I know BIM is not just a singular program. It's like all these different modeling programs and coordination softwares and collaboration softwares. But how do I know what to learn? Do I have to learn all of it? Isn't it hard to learn all of it? Okay, so I'm going to explain that, right? It's very, very simple. There's only three types of software which we use in a typical BIM workflow. And this has been developed right now, right? What has happened in the last 5 years is that these three, like we've sort of developed the BIM workflow standard to have these three things. We have modeling programs, collaboration programs, and services coordination software. We have these three different components, and these three components have their individual programs, but this is what it is. This is the BIM workflow. So I want you to understand this. We have sort of an umbrella of BIM, and then underneath that we have modeling programs, collaboration programs, and coordination software. That's all you need to know, okay? So we started off saying that BIM is a collection of all these different programs. Now we're saying that it's these three different categories that we've established it to be, right? And so in this image, you can see that I have a separate thing called model checking software, but I want you to sort of ignore that for now and just bucket it with services coordination software. So you have one, you have two, and then you have the last two, which is going to be services coordination. So according to the BIM standards, and in 2025 onwards, these are actually the three types of programs that we will be seeing to be used inside a BIM workflow. So all you have to do is understand these three types in order to understand the whole entirety of the BIM workflow process, right? So let's quickly go back to an example that I showed you before of having models combined together to create one combined simulated prototype model, okay? So you have the architectural structure, fire, plumbing, electrical, mechanical, and then you're creating what we call a federated model or a combination model, right? This is like what we can use, and this is what the whole BIM process allows us to do. You know that the ultimate goal in the BIM process is to get each of these models that have been created by each of these individual unique companies and combine them to create a federated model. That is like the ultimate goal with this BIM process. Because if we can create a federated model, that's pretty much like what the building is going to look like in real life, right? Because you have all these individual people working on these different models, we combine it, and now this is what it's going to really look like. And so we have to learn the technology which allows us to combine this. So all you have to do pretty much is learn the technology that allows you to combine and create this federated model, okay? So the reason that we have the three types of programs to facilitate this whole process is because of this, right? You can see that the architect, the structural engineer, the fire protection engineer, the plumbing engineer, the electrical engineer will have their own models, and they create their own model, but they'll be doing this using 3D programs called Revit or ArchiCAD or MEP. There's different other models like Tekla or MEP fabrication. There's like so many different modeling programs that they use, right? And they create their own individual programs using their individual specialized modeling programs, okay? After that, what happens is, so for that to happen, you need to have individual modeling programs. These are also underneath the category of BIM. You have like the architect using something called ArchiCAD. You have the structural guy using something called Tekla. You have the MEP guy using something called Revit. And these are all individual programs, BIM programs that they use in their own companies. Their own team has been skilled and trained, and they've developed their own systems, and they have their training programs to teach their internal company how to use that specific program, right? So they've done that. That's step one. That's why we have this category called modeling programs, because we need to create something. We need to model something, okay? And each of the companies has created their own systems and their own training process for a specific chosen program of their choice. Number two, when each of these teams are modeling using the program of Revit, they actually don't do it independently. They do it, we don't, because the first thing I told you is that we have these individual models: structure, fire, plumbing, electrical, mechanical, architecture. Then I sort of gave you the assumption, or like gave you the idea that we combine them after they're done. That's actually not the case. We can do that, but it's not ideal. We actually want to have them combined all the way from the start, so that as maybe the architect has a model, but as the fire and the plumbing and the electrical and the mechanical, as they're modeling, they actually all model with each other's things live linked. And if we can model with all of the different programs live linked, right? So I'm the mechanical engineer, I have the fire guy's model linked into mine. So it's similar to me having this Google Doc and someone else is coming and editing it at the same time, so I can see it at the same time, right? So because we don't model independently, they they do it with the other teams linked into their model so that they can see the live changes happening in real time. And you can imagine for this to happen, we need a live environment where everyone is working together, sort of like a cloud. For the purpose of storing these models, we work off a live cloud. We actually have a separate program that stores and hosts these models. And think of it as something similar to a Google Drive, which is sort of like a storage bucket for all the different models that are working live. And so that's why we actually have this second category called collaboration platforms, okay? The collaboration platform is just going to be a cloud hosting service which allows us to put our different Revit files or modeling programs, and we can work live of this, okay? So you have this cloud platform, which is the base, then you're working with all these different models live, and they've linked it all because it's all within the same cloud. It's similar to how I might invite you and all your friends into my Google Drive and you can see my Google Drive. So if I upload 2 videos on my Google Drive, you can now see both my videos, but your friend can also see both my videos, right? It's like the same concept. And once we've actually done this and we're live linking and we're creating our models and we've got to the end where like, okay, we've done a substantial amount of progress and we're actually ready. We actually create this federated model. What if we identify issues and clashes inside the model? Because I told you the reason we created the federated model is to actually find issues. And we have to find issues, resolve the issues, and continuously do that over and over again until we have no issues left in the model. And then we go and build it on site. How do we identify issues? That's probably another question you have, right? When we identify them, what do we do? Do we just like take a screenshot and send it in an email? No, we don't do that, right? Because it would be a waste of time to check every single inch of the model with your own eyes. So there's a separate program or series of programs, and what they do is they've been produced specifically to check for clashes and issues within the model and report these issues to the correct parties. Okay? So think of it like this. You have the cloud platform where everyone is storing their models on. The models, after they've done their modeling, is then added to this third program, this third type of program, which takes all these models, creates this federated model, and automatically goes and tries to find where are the issues inside the model, right? And it'll tell you if there's any clashes or if there's any issues with clearance and all of that stuff. So that third type is actually called the services coordination software. And if you think about it, it's very simple, right? It makes sense. All we need is an environment to work in. We need people to put in their stuff so that we know everyone is working here. And we need to link it so that we can see everyone else's stuff. And then we need to find issues with everyone's stuff. And if we find issues with everyone's stuff, we should be able to find it quickly and automatically. If we can do that and we can resolve the issues, then we can create a model where there are no more issues anymore and we can go on site and we can build it, right? Doesn't it make really like logical sense if you think about it with like why this BIM workflow exists? Because we can literally have an environment, we can have an area where we have our models, we can resolve the issues, we can find the issues, we can produce the ultimate model which has no issues, and we can go and install it on site, right? So that's legitimately all we need to know. That's the whole BIM workflow, like these 3 different tiers of different models. And your job is to learn these 3 different things and showcase to employers when you're actually, when you have your CV, when you have your portfolio, you have to showcase to employees that you understand this process and you actually know the different programs. And the level to which you know these different programs and you know how they integrate with each other is the level to which you can help the company save more money and actually be efficient with their work. And which is why you will get hired if you're very skilled in these things very quickly, right? So let's break it down. It's very simple. It's a pyramid, right? You have your cloud platform, then you have your 3D models, which sits on top of it. Then you have your coordination program. We host everything on here. We then put our stuff in, the 3D models. We then use the coordination program to find any issues, and we send it to each of the parties involved, and they can resolve it, right? It's like a pyramid. The only last thing which I haven't really talked about is once we actually find the issues using the coordination programs at the very top of the pyramid over here, we actually send those issues back down to the cloud platform and we store those issues in the cloud platform so that everyone in the whole project is able to view and see what those issues are. So all I mean by that is if we use a coordination program to find an issue or a clash, let's just say a duct is clashing with a pipe. We have to find a way to take a snapshot of that and store that somewhere in some sort of folder. So we have it saved with the issue number, so that later on I can say, hey Matt, we have issue 5 which needs to be solved. Can you go and resolve that? If you want to know where the issue is, I've created this issue in this folder over here. You can go and look at it and you know exactly where that issue is going to be. So there needs to be some sort of process for us to actually save what the issues are. And so the cloud platform should allow you to actually store that information there so that you can actually have that information and send it to anyone, right? As sort of like a tracking situation. So here is the hierarchy of programs that combine together to form the BIM workflow. So this is just a little bit of a step up from what I showed you. This is just a pyramid, like cloud platform, your 3D models, coordination program. It's the same thing. You have the cloud platform is over here, right? But then you have the modeling programs up here. Then you have the services coordination. So if you look at this center as sort of like the base, you have the center, which is your collaboration platform. Then you have the modeling programs. Then you have the services coordination. And the modeling programs is always in contact with the collaboration platform. And the services coordination is always in contact with the collaboration platform. So the modeling program gives information to the collaboration platform. And then we take that information, we send it to the services coordination software. And then we find issues, we send it back to the collaboration platform. And then the people can then use that information, go back to their modeling programs, and then solve the problems, and then that will then be reflected back in the collaboration platform, and then you can go and see that those problems are solved in the coordination software. And it's sort of like a loop that goes up, right? Up, down, here, back up. It's sort of like an 8 if you're drawing an 8 on the screen, right? And so there's two ways of looking at it. You can look at it in terms of like the hierarchy of programs and how everything works in like this pyramid, or you can look at it in terms of this is the workflow. This is how things work. We go in this sort of like figure 8 from collab platform to modeling program down to services coordination software. And we continue going like that over and over and over again until we have no more issues left in the whole entire building in the model. And then we can go and build it on site, right? So very simple here. Let's do a quick recap so that I can make sure that you haven't lost me so far, okay? So because this is very critical information that you need to understand, the basics of what I just talked about. First, we learned that we virtually construct a building using a series of 3D modeling software, a series of collaboration software, and a series of coordination software. So there's a bucket of programs that we use to construct a building inside the computer before we do it in real life. Learning every single one of these modeling programs, coordination programs, collaboration platform programs is what learning BIM means. That's the first concept that I taught you. After that, we went one step further and I actually broke down the bucket of BIM programs into 3 different things. I said there's cloud storage hosting platforms, there's 3D modeling programs, there's coordination software. These are the 3 buckets that we have, sub buckets that we have, and then we have programs within these buckets, okay? And so what you need to do is learn each of these programs, and you need to know what program is relevant to your country and the company and the type of projects that you want to work for. Basically, if you want to work for commercial type projects, large scale prisons, aged cares and hospitals and stuff like that, you might have a unique amount of programs that you have to learn compared to if you're only doing residential, right? So you need to learn all these things. So what is the current state of the BIM industry? Because if I didn't teach you, right, before I go through that stuff, I want to explain to you what the current state of the BIM industry is so that you can get a key insight into how you can take advantage of this rapid expansion which is about to happen. And I can only explain this to you now in the video because you understand the fundamentals, that there are 3 different types of programs and you can understand the BIM language which I'm going to use, right? So what's the current state of the BIM industry and what do we need to do, you and I, what do we need to do to make sure that we're on the right side of this so that we don't actually get made redundant because of AI in the next 5 to 10 years, right? Over the last couple of years, you've probably been realizing more and more of your colleagues and people you know are speaking about BIM. Even if your colleagues are not talking about it, you've probably realized just from your workplace and job listings that BIM is taken way more seriously and treated as a requirement, whereas before it was not really the case. And it seems like it's becoming more popular, more mainstream, and more of a requirement than ever before. And I told you the reason for this is because, remember, computers are developing, technology is developing. We can do simulations, rendering, 3D programs. We have advanced graphics cards. Because of this, it's like 10 years ago, architects didn't need to know how to use rendering softwares. They only need to know how to draw on a piece of paper and then have a good imagination. And they just needed a pencil and a piece of paper because everything was done with sketching, right? That was like 100 years ago. Now, architects use computer. So the role of architect has developed for you to actually need to know how to use rendering softwares, modeling softwares, right? So you need to know all these things as an architect. So similar to that, it is now developing one step further where BIM is coming into the equation because we have advanced computers, not even advanced computers, simple computers that can now run advanced looking 3D modeling software, right? And so the BIM industry is actually one of the fastest growing industries, and it's expected to double within the next 5 years. Because of this, every single company is now using the correct BIM process. And because if they don't do that, they actually don't get projects and they don't win projects in the current market, right? I've worked at a lot of companies that they actually stopped getting projects for a specific period of time if they don't prove that they have a proper BIM process. And they get asked a lot of questions before they win projects in interviews, pre-tender interviews and stuff like tender interviews, stuff like that. What is your BIM process? Who is your BIM coordinator? What are you using? How have you used to innovate? What is the stuff that you've done here? If they can't answer those questions well, they don't actually get the project in the first place. And that's the current situation in 2025 onwards, right? It's going to become more scrutinized and way more scrutinized. It's the equivalent of, imagine like you were running some sort of architecture or engineering company and they said, hey, let's give you a job. Can you answer a few questions? Do you use pencil and paper to create your floor plans, or do you use computer? Are you going to give it to us in pencil and paper? And if you said, we have really good architects, but we use pencil and paper, they're not going to give you the job because they want you to produce information, and they want you to produce an outcome in line with the current technology and standards in the current world, in the current situation, right? And so you can see here, this is one of the fastest, most rapidly growing industries. From 2025 to 2030, we have a 2x growth, right? In the industry. It's going to go from 19.93, it's more than 2x, to $19.04 billion, right? This industry is growing so quick in the next 5 years. So whatever jobs you see now, however much you think it is growing, it is going to pretty much double in the next 5 years, right? And if you think that the amount of jobs increase, the standard is not increasing because people are not actually learning the skill set. So there is a deficit between supply and demand. If you can capitalize on this and actually learn this skill set quickly now, then you'll actually become really, really impossible to fire, right? You probably remember back in the day when AutoCAD used to be really popular, the requirement was that everyone had to learn this 2D drafting program. But no one actually seems to want to learn AutoCAD anymore because no one uses that. Everyone skips that. They go into 3D because Revit automatically produces the 2D drawings as you are modeling on 3D. So it's like you just do the same effort and spend the same time modeling on 3D, and 2D drawings are automatically produced. So that's why everyone uses 3D now, because we can produce 2D drawings from Revit. We don't need AutoCAD anymore. And so many of my clients and people that I personally know in the industry have actually quit their jobs because they have not seen growth potential in the place that they work in, because their company was only using AutoCAD and there was no opportunity for them to learn BIM, and therefore they saw their skill set was under threat, okay? And here's the bottom line. Because of the advancement of technology, software and artificial intelligence, a lot of professions are becoming integrated and united with technology and artificial intelligence, because it becomes the norm and the way that the world is heading towards. And when you look at the construction industry, it's one of the biggest industries that can be brutally impacted in a good way, in a positive sense, to reduce costs and increase efficiency of systems. Since construction and infrastructure is one of the most, construction and infrastructure is where money actually gets moved in this world, right? If you think about the biggest, most expensive things, they're buildings, infrastructure, bridges, right? The most money that is ever being moved is to actually, it's nothing to do with products or services or if you think of Amazon, or if you think of Netflix, or you think of these really billion-dollar companies, they are a fraction of the cost of the amount of money that has been moved with construction. Because houses, buildings, hospitals, prisons, right? What we go on, infrastructure, roads, bridges, all of this is these are not billions, trillions of dollars. I don't even know the number past trillions. It's decatrillion, whatever it is, decatrillions. It's so big to the point where if we can optimize 0.5% of that, right, we save billions of dollars. So because of that, that is why technology is being used with the construction industry to save such small percentages that equate to such enormous amounts of money being saved. And that's why BIM processes are so efficient. That's why if you work as a BIM coordinator, BIM manager, and you can quantify and justify how much time you're saving or how much percentage you're saving for the company, you can actually quantify and justify a huge raise for your salary, because you know exactly how much value you're providing to the company because of the skills that you have and the technology that you're implementing and the time you're saving, right? So pretty much similar to how knowing AutoCAD wasn't good enough and learning Revit wasn't necessary, it's now become a reality in the market where knowing Revit is considered underskilled. Just knowing that. Companies are looking for key players who know the whole BIM skill set, and they want people that are gonna want to learn and grow and develop their skill set so that they can actually get more projects, and so they evolve as the industry evolves, right? And so I put this image here again because I want you to understand how much of a huge growth potential there is if you actually learn this skill set. Because like I said before, like 50 years ago, if you told someone that you needed to learn a 3D modeling, or like as an architect, you told someone you needed to learn a computer program to be an architect, they would laugh at you. What do you mean a computer program? That's for people that do IT, right? But all we need to know is we need a pencil and a piece of paper, and we can create a floor plan, and we just need a sketch because we're architects. But now what has happened, you don't use pencil and paper as architects, maybe even in like the preliminary design phase, but now you need to know how to use a Lumion or like some 3D rendering software. You need to know how to use Revit or AutoCAD to create sort of like a sketch, right? And you need to know how to bring it to life, bring whatever is inside your mind on life on the computer. That's what you need to know. And because of that, it's very similar to that, where in the future, you need to understand the BIM coordination, BIM management skill set so that you can stay up to date with the whole industry and you don't fall behind, okay? It's similar to, what is the unique opportunity in the next 5 years? A really unique thing that has happened over the last few years, which has set up the next decade of the architecture, engineering, and construction industry, is that the BIM workflow has become super established on a high level, okay? So do you remember how I talked about the cloud platforms and the 3D models and the coordination programs? Slowly over the last decade, we've developed systems where we only started off with Revit models at the start when we talked about BIM. This is why it wasn't popular. We only had like Revit, which was like on your computer locally. But what happened was Autodesk Construction Cloud, ACC, came out, or like it was created by Autodesk, which is the same company that created Revit, which is also the same company that created AutoCAD, which is the 2D software. Once they came out, they created this cloud collaboration platform, which means that you don't actually have to work live on your computer. You can work live on the cloud. What does this mean? This means everyone else can work live with you. What does this mean? Now everyone is collaborating together. This workflow has become so established only within the last like 5 to 6 years, and companies have started to implement it. If this hadn't happened, then we wouldn't have this opportunity with BIM, right? But this has happened. And then we had coordination programs, which then integrated with everything. Now the whole workflow has become established in this pyramid that I'm showing you over here. So all you have to do is learn this pyramid and learn the programs over here and actually upgrade your skill set to the point where then you will be able to get the optimal opportunities within the industry, right? And so I think I talked about this stuff because it's actually so effective. Yeah, it's similar to if you had tried to learn IT. This is just the last thing I'm going to talk about before I actually move on to the programs based on your region. But if you had learned IT back in 2005, right? Like it probably wouldn't have served you that good, because like IT in the early 2000s, 2005, there was only a handful of people that knew IT that had computers. They were so expensive. Like they were the size of like rooms and stuff like that. But now, how small is a USB? It's tiny, right? So if you had learned IT back then and you became really, really versed with it, take for example Mark Zuckerberg, take for example Bill Gates, they're like the people that had computers back in the day because they had some advantage. I think Mark Zuckerberg was like the only person, he was just advantaged because he had a computer in his university and he used that computer to develop Facebook, right? And so the people back then that had the skill set, that had the advantage of knowing and just had the luck. They had the luck of literally just knowing that this is the way to go and this is where the world was heading. And so he built the biggest company in the world, right? Bill Gates did the exact same thing because he was a very early adopter. And so he built Microsoft, which is now what everyone uses, right? And so The only reason I say this is because people that are early adopters have so much time in the game that they understand and they become so far ahead of everyone that they are the people that get hired into all these companies and they become the A players. And companies love A players because A players make a company 15, 20 times more profit than B or C players. But the only thing is, if you make the company 15, 20 times more profit, you only have to pay them 2 to 3 times the amount. So this is why BIM coordinators, BIM managers, directors, like all these these people that can actually impact the company in a positive way and actually have good influence and can develop systems in a way that helps the company grow. This is why they are able to make so much more money compared to the average draftsperson or architect or engineer, and their career progression is much faster because they can actually justify that they're making the company 10 times more the amount of money or 5 times more the amount of money. Because of that, they can get paid double or triple the amount of money, right? So you might think that like a BIM coordinator or a BIM manager, okay, someone that is a BIM manager that is helping the company grow by developing the systems within the company might only get paid 30% more than me. But I can guarantee they're getting paid double or triple the amount as you because they're actually developing systems which they can go and tell the company, hey, this is how much I've made the company. Can I get just a percentage of that, which is like double or triple your salary, right? And so this is why you need to understand this technology, because technology is what will allow people to grow quickly in there and increase profit margins and stuff like that in companies. You have to think about it as a business or like you have to have like an entrepreneur mindset when you're even looking at your job, because you have to think about how can I help the business, which is the job, which is the place I'm working at, make more money. When that happens, right? For that to happen, I need to develop more skills. As I develop more skills, I make the company I work for more money. The consequence is I get paid more money because I am more valuable. It's very simple, right? So Charles Darwin said, it is not the strongest of the species that survive, nor is it the most intelligent that survives. It's just the one that is the most adaptable to change. So we just got to adapt to change when it happens, right? So in summary, here are the 2 types of people who really need to learn BIM coordination and the management workflows. If you value quick progression, fast learning, and you want to feel passionate about your job because of how dynamic and how fun the day-to-day tasks are, rather than doing the boring, mundane architecture, engineering, and drafting tasks, then the BIM coordination and BIM management field is only going to expand and explode in the next 5 years, even more than is already established right now, right? So you can be an early learner of the BIM methodologies and take real advantage of the skill shortage, similar to how the people that learn IT back in the day, early 2010s or like 2009, 2008, they're working at Google, Amazon, Netflix now, they're coding, they're working remotely from home, and they're making $300,000 a year, working 40 hours a week. And a lot of people have more work-life balance because they work remotely. So when they work remotely, they get paid more based on performance rather than hours, right? So, an outcome. So if you're currently, so that's number 1, okay? If you want fast progression, you want to take advantage of this opportunity, then BIM, you have to learn the BIM methodologies. Number 2 is if you're just currently an architect, engineer, draftsperson, and you want to make sure that your job doesn't become redundant or you don't lose your skill set in the industry in the next decade as the AI revolution takes its place, then you really need to learn the BIM coordination and management workflows and skill set so that you'll be able to work as an architect, as an engineer, as a draftsperson in the future as well, because those roles will have higher minimum requirements and skill sets. It's like the same thing which I said with drafting using being an architect with a pencil versus being an architect needing to know like technology and software, like rendering software, right? The bar is increasing. If you wanted to, and I talked about that over here, right? So you can see how the role of architect is developed and integrated with technology over time. So this is the exact same thing that's about to happen as the AI revolution takes hold. Okay, so how to determine the BIM workflow and programs based on your region? Let's talk about that. Okay, so do you remember how we broke down the BIM workflow into cloud platforms, modeling software, coordination programs, right? These 3. Let's start off by defining some of the cloud platforms that are commonly used in the industry, okay? So let's start off at the very bottom of the pyramid and we're gonna work our way up, and I'm gonna reveal to you every single program that is being used. Number 1, cloud platform. The most commonly used cloud platform is the ACC. Autodesk Construction Cloud, ACC, right? That's what I'm going to call it for the rest of the video. 95% of the whole industry uses the ACC, and then the other 5% don't even use any cloud platform, right? So I'm telling you, like, if you're gonna learn something, the ACC is the foundational skill that you need to learn, right? If you want to make sure that you can become a BIM coordinator, BIM manager in the future, okay? And there are some other collaboration platforms like Trimble Connect that are being used, but they're being used less than 1, 2, or 3% of the time. And they're used in very small scale projects. And usually like the companies that use those projects have some sort of affiliation with that brand, right? So Autodesk Construction Cloud, from my experience, has been the most commonly established cloud platform that is being used in Australia, Europe, US, UK, Asia. Every single one of my clients that I've worked with one-on-one has needed to learn the ACC, hands down. I've worked with people from Australia, Europe, US, UK, and Asia, and they all learned the ACC because that was a foundational skill, right? So we can restructure our pyramid to look something like the below. So we just have the ACC down there, right? When you think of learning a cloud-based platform and you're trying to understand how it operates, the only thing you should learn is to use the ACC because it's the standard. You might be wondering why the ACC or the Autodesk Construction Cloud is so popular. And why is it sort of like, why am I saying it's sort of like a monopoly when it comes to like the cloud-based storage for 3D models? The answer to this is actually because it is a monopoly, right? And the way for you to understand this is because when you go one step higher into the 3D models, you'll realize that the most common 3D modeling software that is used in the whole world is this program called Revit, okay? Revit is created from Autodesk, which is the same company that creates the Autodesk Construction Cloud, right? The Construction Cloud is made by Autodesk. Revit is made by Autodesk. Revit is the one that sort of like changed the whole world when it came to 3D modeling software for the construction industry. They're like the innovators. Because of that, since they're the digital innovators, then what happened was they created a cloud-based platform. So everyone is using this cloud-based platform because it integrates so well with Revit, right? So there is no other platform that allows you to achieve the outcome of working live, right? So to answer your previous question, Revit is made by the same company. We talked about that. Because of this reason, Revit works really well with the ACC and it allows you to work live. Similar to the Google Doc on the cloud, so that everyone else can see your changes happen live. It's like similar to this Google Doc where I can give you editing access to this and you can actually come and type in things after here and I'll be able to see the changes. So no other platform allows you to achieve this outcome that I know. And it's only a combination of the ACC with Revit, which allows you to live link other people's models similar to a Google Doc and actually see the changes happening in real time. I remember at the start of the video, I talked about like these other programs like Tekla and MEP Fabrication and Autodesk Civil 3D and ArchiCAD and Vector, like all these different modeling programs. None of them allow you to work live with the ACC, with the cloud, apart from Revit. Revit is the only modeling program that allows you to work live with ACC. Just because Revit works live with ACC, it doesn't mean that every single company still utilizes it. There's actually a lot of companies that also use separate modeling programs and periodically give updates and put those updates on the ACC. The reason for this is because these companies will prefer to use other modeling programs over Revit because they're easy to use and maybe have better resources and templates and the team is trained in a better way, but they give up on the functionality of being able to link in everyone's models live because they're not using a proprietary software. That just pretty much means is it being created by Autodesk because Autodesk is what created Revit, it's what created ACC. Since all these other programs like Tekla and Vectorworks and ArchiCAD, they're not using proprietary software, which means it's not created by Autodesk, they can't work live. And so they give up the functionality of being able to work live, but they've actually just trained their company and stuff to be able to use these other programming tools, right? So in summary, anyone who is not using Revit can still periodically send updated models and every other team member can view those models in the cloud. The only downside will be that they're not going to be able to have a live model and no one will be able to see it, okay? So what happens is, if you're using Revit on the ACC, then everyone can link in your Revit files live if everyone is working with Revit. However, as soon as you start to use like Tekla and ArchiCAD and all these other programming softwares, you actually can't work live and you have to send your file at the end of each day or at the end of each week, and then that's when they can see your model. They have to then take your thing from an email, put it into their model, and then they can see your updates, right? So there's two ways. You can either work live, everyone uses Revit, or you can not work live and everyone uses their other modeling programs. It is better to work live, but since the ACC is more of like a recent addition into the workflow of like the whole BIM industry, because the ACC only became sort of mainstream over the last 5-ish years, there's a lot of companies that still want to use Tekla and ArchiCAD, right? And people are making the switch now, but a lot of architectural companies still use ArchiCAD because it's much easier. Their team is trained in ArchiCAD. They have their templates set up in ArchiCAD, so they don't want to spend time and money teaching people how to do Revit. They are trying to do that now, but because of this reason, there's people are still stuck on ArchiCAD. That is why that they periodically will have to send their models from time to time, and you as a BIM coordinator need to know how to actually deal with that and actually create this federated model and still make this process run smoothly, even though some people are not running live, right? And running like a live model. So let's update the pyramid with what you can see below. So you can see here, we have the ACC, which is the foundation. Then we have all these modeling programs. So we have Revit, we have ArchiCAD, we have Vectorworks, we have Tekla, we have Civil 3D, we have CAD MEP. Keep in mind that the only time we can work live is if we combine Revit with ACC. And I say that over again because I just want you to understand that these other things you can't work live, right? If we use any of these other programs inside the second run of the pyramid, we will not be able to work live, and every single person's updates will need to be happening at the end of the day or the end of the week. It's the same as me downloading this Google Doc over here as a doc or a PDF. Imagine I download it as a PDF, and then this will start downloading on my computer, right? It's gonna pop up here. This is then, I can then put this in an email and send it to you at the end of each week. If I send this to you at the end of each week, you can see my updates only once a week. But if I work on, but that is only the case if this whole Google Doc didn't have the functionality of working live. But what I can do is I can just share you this link, right? I can copy this link and I can send it to you. If I copy this link and send it to you, now you can see any changes happening live. So the only way you can see, and this functionality is only available on this Google Docs platform, right? And so because of this, all you need to know is Revit works live with ACC, everything else, not live. Okay? And so now you're probably thinking, okay, now great. Do I really have to learn every other 3D modeling program in order to stand out in the industry? In order to stand out like the BIM workflow? Because I said you have to learn Revit, you have to learn the ACC, you have to learn everything else as well. The answer to this is no. Okay? You do not have to learn all of these programs. You only need to learn one concept, which I'm about to teach you, and that'll actually prevent you from learning every single one of these other programs. You only need to learn Revit because it's the most used in the industry, and because of the monopoly we talked about, all the companies in the long run will gravitate towards Revit because of how convenient and how easy it is, right? Because ACC is the foundation of the pyramid, which has taken up the market share of everything. So Revit is the most common and popular. It is right now in the world, the most common and popular. Instead of learning the rest of this, all you have to do is understand something called IFC. IFC stands for Industry Foundation Classes, doesn't matter what it stands for, but it is pretty much just a common way of them sharing their files with you. Because if someone sends me their ArchiCAD file, I can't actually open that in Revit because it's a completely different file extension. It's like me trying to open it's like a Word document in an Excel spreadsheet, or a spreadsheet document in a Microsoft Word document. It doesn't work because they're completely different sort of programs that do different things, right? So what we do is there is a way that we can open this in like any one of these programs. And we have this common file format called the IFC file format. And that is what you need to learn instead of learning all these other programs. So in summary, you need to learn the ACC, you need to learn Revit, and then you need to learn IFC instead of learning all these additional other programs, right? So now I've opened up a whole can of worms and a rabbit hole. What is IFC? So you're probably wondering what that is. So I'll explain what it is and we'll go briefly into it, and you'll actually understand what it is by the end of this video, so that then you can actually go ahead and start to learn this stuff, right? All right, so what is IFC? So let's just say you're working in Revit and you want to link everything, like you're working in Revit or someone is working in Revit and they want to link in every single other person on the team's files in. Like the Revit guy wants to link in the ArchiCAD guy's file. Like I said before, you can't actually link it in because it's a completely different file extension. You know how like we have a Word document as DOXC, and an Excel file as XLSX, right? You can't open a DOXC with an XLSX. You can't open an XLSX with a DOXC. So what we actually do is, if you want to actually read them universally and you want to make sure anyone can read it in the whole world, because you might not actually have Microsoft Word, or you might not actually have Microsoft Excel. What we can do is we can go to File, we can go to Download, and we can download this as a PDF. If we download it as a PDF, this becomes a common file format that everyone has. This becomes a common file format that you can send to anyone all over the world, and there's free PDF viewers, which allows you to view what this model is, right? And so that is the exact same process that we have here. IFC is, all it is it is a file format. And it is the exact same as PDF. Think of it like that. It is a file format similar to PDF, which is, there's free viewers for IFC that you can download, and you can see like the whole 3D model, right? It's very similar to like a PDF because you have like free PDF viewers and stuff like that. So what we can also do is, any one of these programs have been built to link in IFC files, which means that I can't link in a Tekla file into my Revit. I can't link in an ArchiCAD file into my Revit. I can only export ArchiCAD and Tekla into IFC, and if I export it into IFC, which is the middle one over here, then I can link it into Revit. And it's the same thing for everything else. Like the Tekla guy will only be able to link in your Revit file if you export it to IFC first. So everything has to go through this IFC. And the only reason this has to happen is if we're using different modeling softwares, right? If we are only using Revit, then everyone can link in each other's Revit files because they work perfectly together and they work with the ACC in a live environment. But if we're using all these different modeling softwares, we actually have to convert it into IFC before we link it into Revit, right? Because there is no other way to do it. It's similar to a PDF, right? And so this is also in the BIM standards. In the BIM standards, we have this common program, we have this common thing called IFC, this common file format, which is like every single BIM program should be able to be compatible with IFC, which allows us to link in and see each other's models and programs without actually also giving your original Revit file or Tekla file or ArchiCAD file. This way, if there's like some sort of intellectual property issues as well, you're not actually giving any file away. You're not giving your Revit file away. You're not giving your template away. You're giving sort of like an exported version or a PDF, right? Which is like a overall file extension, like a high level file extension of like what your model looks like, without having like the specific things that can be intellectual property and issues like that. Okay, so now, let's go one step further. Just as a summary, you now can see an update to your workflow where every single program has to be converted to IFC before it gets sent to the ACC, right? Because if you think about it like this, the ACC is the cloud. This is where everyone is working on. You have the Revit files, because some people are working on Revit and they live link their Revit into the ACC. So they're working live on the ACC now, okay? All these other people can't work live on the ACC, because there is no functionality to work live with Tekla and the ACC. There is no functionality to work live with ArchiCAD and the ACC because they're two different companies, right? So because of that, we can upload our ArchiCAD file into the ACC, but we can't link it in. The only way we can link in something into each of these like Revit files is if we convert it to IFC before we upload it to the ACC. If we upload it to the ACC as an IFC file, then anyone that is working live on the ACC can then link in that IFC file and see what the model is, right? So that is the whole process behind this. So all you need to know is that you need to understand Revit because everyone is using Revit, right? You also need to understand the ACC because that is the main thing. You also need to understand how to export properly to IFC, how to deal with IFC files, how to view IFC files, how to make sure, how to actually take those IFC files, have the correct coordinate systems, and how to link it in to each of the Revit files so that everyone can see each other's modeling programs, right? That is the skill set that you need to develop as well, okay? So you need to understand the language of IFC. All right. In terms of modeling programs, you need to learn Revit because it is the most commonly, I talked about that. Typically a workflow, you'll have a majority of, typically in a workflow, you'll have a majority of teams using Revit, and then you'll have 1 or 2 teams using other programs, which you'll have to convert to IFC in order for everyone to link it in, right? So, what coordination program should I learn? If you made it this far in the video, congratulations, because it's very educational, long form video, and it takes a very long time, and I'm strategically explaining everything here the exact same way that I explain it in like my paid one-on-one mentorship in my program, on a very high level. Obviously, I can't go into depth about everything in here. So if you want more information about how this whole process works, you can DM me the word BIM on Instagram. I can actually send you my 3-phase BIM blueprint, like the step-by-step instructions on how everything works, so you can have like a read of that, and you can let me know if it's something that you want to do. But this video is sort of like a overarching sort of a high-level explanation of how everything is in my one-on-one program, so you can get a good understanding of the whole mindset and the knowledge of like the whole BIM workflow, right? So what I want to do now is reveal to you the final step of the pyramid, which is the coordination programs and how everything ties together in order to make this a complete workflow. When we think of BIM coordination programs, there is 4 that you probably hear about, and depending on where you live and which company you work for, you'll have to learn one of these 4, or maybe all 4 of them, right? And the 4 are the Autodesk Construction Cloud, right? Navisworks, Calibri, Revitstu. Okay, these are 4 coordination softwares that you will potentially need to learn in order to become a BIM manager or a BIM coordinator, right? Or become a BIM manager through becoming a BIM coordinator. So, and by the way, if you want to know what the difference is between BIM coordinator and BIM manager, BIM coordinator just does the coordination aspect of things. BIM manager understands the whole workflow over here and tries to find optimal systems in order to make sure that this is all working correctly, okay? How to set up the cloud properly, managing the cloud, how to make sure that we're using the correct coordination program for the correct software. And is there anything new in the industry that we can use to optimize and save some time, save some money with our company with using the new technology? So systems thinking about how we can actually optimize the current company with the current systems we use. Whereas that is a BIM manager's job. A BIM coordinator will not really need to care about the workflow and how everything works together. They just need to know, how do I create a federated model and how do I need to do the coordination, okay? But for you to become a BIM coordinator, this is the first step you need to learn, is learn these 4, or like learn the Autodesk Construction Cloud, Navisworks, Calibri, and Revitstu, and then you can put this on your portfolio and you can start to then get interviews and go to jobs, right? And I'll show you the portfolio in a second. But let's go through each of these and I'll tell you which ones you actually should learn, because I have a recommendation based on what I do with the people that I work with personally, for which ones you need to learn here, and it depends on which country you're in as well, right? So first of all, go to like your LinkedIn or like your job seeking portal or wherever you look for jobs and type in like BIM coordinator or BIM manager, list out what each of the companies require. What are the different programs that you see there, okay? there'll be nothing more than this. This is the only 4 that is used in the industry. I've never seen anything else. It'll be one of these 4. It'll be all 4 of these. It'll be like some combination of these, okay? So go write it down and then you can figure out what you need to learn. So that's my recommendation. But the Autodesk Construction Cloud is the most popular and common one, okay? This is not a surprise because the ACC also is like the cloud platform. So the cloud platform is where everything is hosted. It is also where everything, we set up the permissions. This is where we work live on. At the same time, they also have a functionality to do model coordination, to do clash detection, to do like this coordination, BIM coordination stuff. So that's why everyone uses it, because it is like the 1 in 7 thing that like allows you to do everything, right? It's like a Head and Shoulder shampoo, like 1 in 7 that like does everything together. So the most popular one is this ACC. What I mean by the ACC is it actually has an inbuilt model coordination program, which we can use on the cloud, on the internet, in order to coordinate everything which is there. So we don't even have to download any programs. It's like a web-based coordination system, okay? You don't have to download anything and it can be done on the cloud, which is super simple. And it's why a lot of companies opt to use this system of using the ACC. I use this a lot for like the first like 1.5 years once I became a BIM coordinator, I implemented this to my company and I only used like the ACC. And then later on, I implemented the next one, which I'm going to teach you, which is Navisworks, and I sort of combine them both together. But I'll show you how to do that in a second, right? It's because you have the inbuilt model coordination process as well as a Revit file storage location. This way, you can work live, right? And you can coordinate with the live models, and it's a really good place and it's a common place for this BIM workflow. If you use the ACC, you can actually find issues and clashes, and you can create issues and assign them to specific people on the cloud, and they can actually come and resolve these problems so that everything is easily trackable, right? So imagine this, you're using the ACC, you're working live off Revit, everyone is using Revit, so the model, the federated model is now like a live federated model. It gets updated occasionally, but like you can update it whenever, because it's sort of like, you don't have to wait for people to send you emails with their models. You can just see it on the cloud, right? So you just click a button, it updates the federated model. It's a live model. And then you can start looking at issues there. When you look at issues, it is also an issue management platform, like another thing, right? So what that means is you can actually go into the model, you can zoom in and you can click a place and you can put this little pinpoint over here, which means that this is like, these are individual issues, these dots over here. This means that it gives you like an issue number, issue 464, and it tells you it's a clash, it's open, and it puts an image there, and you can actually type there, and you can tag someone, you can assign it to someone, you can put a due date, and you can say this is where the issue is, so that later on anyone can come to this model coordination federated model, click on their name, and they'll see a bunch of issues that they have to resolve that you've created. So now Autodesk Construction Cloud is like a whole system which you can work live off. You have issues, you can track these issues, right? You have due dates for the issues. You can see exactly on the model where the issues are. You can see when someone updates it straight away on their model, it gets updated. You click one button and then it like reloads, and then you can see that the issue has been resolved. So it's very easy to use this whole process, and it's very effective because there is very little there's very little stoppage from one to another. You don't have to wait for someone to send you a model and then for you to send them back a model and then for you to, you don't have to wait for that whole process, right? So that's why ACC is very common. I use this when I became BIM coordinator, I implemented this into the company first. This is what was being used for most of the projects. I just went with it. But then after that, what happened was I learned Navisworks, right? And so you've probably heard of Navisworks, but I want you to keep in mind that Navisworks is not on the cloud. It is local. That means that we don't get the benefits of being able to share these issues with everyone else. So do you know how I said over here, you put like your dots over here and you can put a due date and a name, and then they get an email automatically, then they can resolve it, then you can see that the status goes from open to solved, right? That whole workflow is not available with Navisworks because Navisworks is not on the cloud, it's on your computer. You have to download an individual dedicated program for Navisworks. Because of this reason, it is on your computer. So now what? Now, whenever you create clashes, you actually have to create a PDF report. You have to export the PDF report. You have to send it as in an email to like your team. Your team has to download that email, download that PDF, open the PDF, find where it is on the model somehow, resolve it, and then they can't even put a comment on the PDF. Then they send you an email saying, I've resolved the clashes. Then you have to go back and rerun it again. There is no workflow for like having an issue, creating an issue, resolving the issue, giving it a due date, giving it a name, someone that has to resolve it, right? There's no process like that. But having said that, Navisworks is way more efficient at creating clashes and automating the clash detection process compared to the Autodesk Construction Cloud. And because of this, I like how automated the whole Navisworks process is with BIM coordination. Because of this, I actually use Navisworks, and recently they have this add-on, this coordination add-on. I found a way to actually combine Navisworks with ACC, and Navisworks is actually also created by the same company, Autodesk, which is why you can combine Navisworks with ACC, and that actually allows you to auto send all your issues on Navisworks to the ACC. So it like automatically creates them, right? And then you can just send them to the ACC and they'll automatically populate all your little dots and circles over here where the issues are. I've found, and once I figured out how to do that, I implemented that into the company that I work for right now. And then that's something that saved me a lot of time each week with my coordination process as well, right? So two things. So because of this, I would recommend, and I teach everyone in my bottom one program, Navisworks as well, because I want to teach them the best up-to-date coordination process with Navisworks and ACC, because if you can implement these two together, you can actually get the BIM coordination very efficient and very effective, right? Because you can use the advantage of Navisworks because it's powerful, and the advantage of ACC because it's a cloud-based platform, and you can use powerful software with cloud-based software and combine them together, right? Okay. It's actually very similar to this. So on this Google Doc, I can go to like suggesting mode. And if I go to suggesting mode, I can go over here and I can put in like a comment. I can see like temp comment, like test comment. I can click comment, or like even this is like, these are all like suggestions that you add, right? So you can add suggestions, you can add comments in here. And if you add comments and suggestions, what does that mean? That means that you are not actually working, it's very similar to having this workflow over here, because it's like a live workflow where you can assign it to someone and then you can put like a comment there. Over here, I can put a comment in here, and then I can go like and then I can choose people's email addresses, right? And then I can put this and then click comment, and it's going to automatically send them an email with what they need to do. And they're going to get it automatically. They can come back into this thread and they can respond to that with whatever they want to say. And then we have like a whole thread of going back and forth about this single sentence, right? Imagine you could do that in a model. That's exactly the same process that we have here, right? So let's go back to editing mode. No, let's go back to viewing mode. All right. So ACC and Navisworks are the two programs that you 100% need to master if you want to become a BIM coordinator, because these are the two that are going to be used in majority of companies. And the reason I say this, and I'm so confident about these two, is because with my one-on-one program, so remember at the start I talked about Eureka, Jana, and Arushi that got BIM coordination jobs. All we did was we just put ACC and Navisworks in their portfolio. And when we put it in their portfolio and we showcased that they knew how to do this stuff, that is what got them the job. So we didn't add this stuff. I didn't help them add Celebri and Revitstu. We just added ACC and Navisworks. And just because those are like 95% of the use cases in the whole world, that is what allowed them to get jobs. So Jana was from Europe, I think Netherlands specifically. Arushi was from London. And then Eureka was from Australia, right? I have a lot of people working from Asia and the US and Canada and all these different countries as well. But like worldwide, ACC and Navisworks, two very powerful things. Put it on your portfolio and start applying for companies, right? And you'll be able to get into a pathway where you can become a BIM coordinator or a BIM manager. So Celebri, this is optional, but it is good to learn this, right? ACC, which is a model coordination software, unlike that, Celebri is considered to be a model checking software. What is the difference between model coordination and model checking? A model coordination software will tell you if there's clashes between any elements. So hypothetically, if there's a duct which is going to go through a pipe, then it will show you a highlight as a clash. And you can see that example below, right? You can see like, this is actually Navisworks. This is not Celebri, but you can see here, this is an example of a model coordination software, which is Navisworks, right? I have that example here. You have a duct, which is in red, and you have a pipe, which is in green, and they're clashing. Very obvious, okay? Celebri will do this, but on top of this, it's also going to do one more thing, which is it's going to check for things which are not clashes, but issues, okay? What does that mean? We can use Celebri to check if walls, like, for example, if you modeled a wall and the wall is not touching the slab above, and you can't really see it, you can use Celebri to check if all the walls are touching the slab above, okay? So this is not really a clash, but this is a model quality assurance program, okay? But it can also do clashes. You can also do that, right? So don't forget that. But it can also do these extra things, like checking to see if the door can open, because you might have a door, you might have a column in front of the door, so the door is not able to open, right? So like the door is not able to open. You have a door here which opens like this on a hinge. You have a column in front of it, so the door can't open. Because of that reason, we might not actually be able to catch that in Navisworks or ACC, because it's not a clash. The column is not inside the door, it's in front of it. But Celebri will be able to tell you if doors are being obstructed. And this is the type of stuff that you can learn from Celebri. These are some examples, right? You can see here, wall components don't touch above, right? You can see here, these wall components are not full height. You can see here, wrong property value. The height is meant to be 310. So you can see that the height of this wall or this section over here, or this wall, is like 310. That's the actual length. But the property on Revit has been shown, someone has typed in something which is different. Because of that, it's showing that there's an inconsistency between the data in Revit, right, and what the model is. So what this is doing is it's increasing the quality of the model, and this is only good when, for the future, if we're handing over our project and then someone wants to use this in the future and they want to make more changes later, like a different company, like a renovation work or something like that, they need a high quality model. And so because they need a high quality model, that is when we have these things like Celebri to send over high quality models and increase the quality assurance, okay? One thing that I need to tell you here is this program isn't as popular as the other programs, but in complex practices and on big large scale projects where it is a requirement to have high quality models, that is where you might see Celebri as like a last step, okay? Keep in mind that in the addition of Celebri is more of a BIM implementation to increase the quality rather than preventing clashes, okay? We can not use Celebri in a workflow at all. If you're using ACC and Navisworks, you can 100% get the outcome, which is a clash-free model, and you can resolve it, and you can have this so that on site there's not going to be any issues to resolve. But if we use Celebri, we still get the same outcome, which means on site you're not going to have issues to resolve. The only thing that Celebri is going to do in addition to ACC and Navisworks is it's going to automatically help you find things like this, which are anomalies in the model, which is going to reduce the quality of the model, right? Because if you want to give a high quality model to your client, then you want to make sure that these things we can automatically find, right? The only thing is Celebri is not like a cloud-based software. You can't work live like ACC, so it's not as easy to implement and combine as it is with the ACC, working with Revit and everything like that. Everything has to be IFC models. So even your Revit file, you have to convert it to IFC and then send it, right? I've seen a lot of practices in the UK use Celebri. I've seen a lot of practices in Europe use Celebri, and the US a little bit, but not as much as ACC and Navisworks. In Australia, Celebri is not really used at all as of currently, and that is what I've seen. So what I want you to do is, just to make sure, go to your local job listings, type in BIM Coordinator, and see if this is one of the things that you need to learn. If you want to learn it, it's not hard. If you learn Navisworks and ACC first, then move on to this second, right? Don't try and learn this first, because it is like trying to do the wrong things. You want to make sure that you effectively learn the correct things that, if you put on your portfolio, are able to get you the job, and then you can start to learn things like Celebri and Revitstu later. Revitstu is just another coordination program similar to Navisworks or the ACC, which is being implemented in the industry. The only real benefit to using this is that Revitstu utilizes like a gaming engine on the cloud, and is very smooth. So you can see things very nicely. You can pan, zoom, orbit. It's not going to crash. Like maybe ACC, sometimes when you have really large models, it's hard to like zoom and pan and like view things. Revitstu, you can have a huge model with landscape and you can make it look really nice. And it looks really nice because it's sort of like on a gaming engine online. And it won't ever crash, right? 100% it won't ever crash. It'll look really nice, but it's not as powerful as having like a cloud-based like ACC, because you can't see all the clashes at once, okay? So it's not used as commonly as ACC and Navisworks, but it is still something that is used here and there. So I personally, like my clients that got jobs, didn't learn Revitstu, because you don't need to learn that. It's very simple to learn in your own time, even after you learn ACC and Navisworks. ACC and Navisworks, putting that on your portfolio is what's going to get you the interviews and the jobs, right? Once you learn those two things, learning Revitstu and Celebri is very simple, and you can do that after. Okay, let's update this pyramid so that we have all our modeling programs and coordination programs available. Okay, so we sort of like made this whole pyramid now. We have ACC, we have all the modeling programs. Just remember that we had IFC that we had to learn as well. We had to learn how to use IFC. Then we had all these like Revitstu, Celebri, Autodesk Construction Cloud, Navisworks. Learn these two first, and then if you want, you can learn Celebri. If you want, you can learn Revitstu, but you should be able to get a job after you learn ACC, Revit, IFC, Navisworks, and ACC model coordination, right? Keep in mind that the only things you need to learn from above so that you don't get confused are learn the ACC cloud platform, learn Revit, learn the IFC models and how to actually deal with those things, learn ACC model coordination, right, which is the coordination platform on the ACC, learn Navisworks, and the optional is Revitstu and Celibri. Okay, so what I want to do now is I want to show you what it would look like to showcase this stuff on your portfolio. And this is actually some examples from my one-on-one clients that I've worked with. The first thing we want to do is on this pyramid, you want to showcase your foundational skill of Revit, because that is what a lot of, like, usually people work as Revit modelers before they become BIM coordinators and BIM managers, right? So you need to have the foundational skill of Revit. So you can see here that one of my clients has actually showcase one of the projects that is done, like a residential project, using Revit. So these renders, like he's made a house look like this. He's got like interior renovations, interior renderings, exterior renderings from the side over here, and then you're showcasing that you know like the detailing stuff on the floor plans using Revit, the elevation views using Revit. So if you had put this on your portfolio and you have like, okay, you have this house that you know how to build, and then you're showcasing that you know how to do like the detailing for the floor plans and then the detailing for the elevations, that's actually a very, very good position to be in, because that's showing that you know how to do Revit. So you've ticked off something that is like a lot of people struggle with, learning Revit. Once you do that, you want to then showcase that you know the coordination stuff. So the way we do that is we can put this stuff on your portfolio, right? You can put the fact that we have like a HVAC and a fire and a plumbing and a structural model, and we're integrating that to create like an integrated federated model. That's using the Autodesk Construction Cloud. We can showcase that we know how to set up the project. So this is actually, you might not understand what this looks like, but this is pretty much like when you're using the ACC, you have all these files, you create like permission settings so that the correct people have the correct access to these files, and then you can put their Revit files inside here. You have like a shared folder, a consumed folder. This is like, if you want to learn about all this stuff, you can message me the word BIM on Instagram and I can send you like a detailed breakdown of what everything would be like to learn all of this. But pretty much this is setting up the project. This is what it is to learn the Autodesk Construction Cloud down here, like how everything gets stored and permission settings are created and how everything works, right? So that's setting up the project. After that, you can showcase that you know how to set up the coordination space. That's like up here in this pyramid. We're showcasing that we know how to set up the Autodesk Construction Cloud. So we've done ACC Cloud Platform, we've done Revit, now we're doing the ACC Model Coordination. So now we're showcasing that, okay, we know how to do like the different architectural, mechanical, plumbing, electrical, fire, the hierarchy. We understand the hierarchy. We understand to set up this thing called coordination space, which is inside the ACC. That coordination space is going to create you like these clashes over here. It's going to create like a clash matrix that you can see over here. And then once you create the clashes, you can actually put examples in your portfolio of like different clashes here, like this electrical cable tray clashing with your duct over here. And you can actually put in the resolution. What's the clash? What's the resolution? What's the clash? What's the resolution? So this way, you're showcasing that you know clashes and resolution, you know the ACC model coordination, you know how to federate a model and the BIM workflow and the BIM process. You know Revit detailing because you're good at Revit. You know how to render, right? What else could we say? Navisworks, right? This is another example of a portfolio of one of my clients. You're showing that you know how to create search sets and sets on Navisworks to create and auto-select individual components inside a model. Then you know how to create sort of like the clash detection process, create like the model clash detection matrix over here, the clash detection on Navisworks. This is what it looks like. You know how to run, sort, and group, and you're showcasing this on your portfolio. So pretty much by the end of like looking at all of this, you have a really effective portfolio, and we've shown that we know ACC Cloud Platform. We showed that we know Revit, how to convert to IFC, because we showed that we know how to do this whole combination thing over here, right? This is like showcasing that we know how to do Revit model combination and IFC combination. We're showcasing that we know how to use the ACC model coordination because we showcased that we knew the matrix and the clash coordination process. And then we showcased that we knew Navisworks as well. The only Two examples that I haven't showcased, right, is Celebri and Revitstu. But you don't really need to showcase that because it's not as popular and common as the basics that I've shown above. But it will be the exact same process to showcase that you know these two programs compared to what I've shown above, right? So if you wanted to, you could go through this and you could showcase these things, and you could also showcase Celebri, you could also showcase Revitstu. It's the exact same thing. But I want you to understand this is sort of what you would do in order to get a job after learning all these things, is showcasing what all these programs are. And this is the reason that I want you to showcase these individual programs. I explain it in this whole video because of the monopoly that the ACC has and Revit, and we have to understand IFC so we can convert these ones. Then we need to know Autodesk Construction Cloud and Navisworks. If we want, then we can add optionally Celebri and Revitstu. And this is why my three-phase BIM blueprint is so effective, because I actually go through this whole process and I help my clients create their portfolios similar to this, and I give them a live working project so they can actually learn this, and I teach them the MEP fundamentals so that they can actually go and sit interviews and actually understand how to do this really well, right? So there's actually only one more thing that you need to do. Learning the programs is one thing. Learning the workflows is one thing. This video is sort of a playbook when it comes to understanding the whole BIM workflow, the programs, what you need to learn so that you can go ahead and you can actually go and do it now. You know exactly why you need to learn ACC, why you need to learn Navisworks, why you don't need to learn the other programs, why you need to learn IFC and what it is, right? So you shouldn't have any confusion about what you need to do right now. You can go ahead and learn it, right? So the only other thing you need to do is understand how it is to actually view and see a model the same way a coordinator sees it. Because there's probably one thing that you realize when going through this stuff, right? Over here, you can see that we talked about clashes and resolutions. When you're talking about clashes and resolutions here, you actually have to understand the MEP services. Like when you look at this stuff, if all you see is a bunch of colors and you don't actually understand what you're looking at and how to coordinate, that's going to be an issue. Because even if you know the programs, you're not going to be able to run a meeting. You're not going to be able to coordinate and communicate with people and tell them what the clashes are. You're not going to be able to create issues. You're going to create the completely wrong issues. You're not going to be able to see things in the model that are not necessarily picked up. You're not going to even be able to actually, none of that, go to an interview and talk to the hiring manager and explain to them your process behind clash coordination, because you don't actually know what to look at. Like when you look at MEP services, you're not going to really know what the MEP services are, right? So you need a real world example. You need a process to go through and follow so that you can actually do this for yourself and understand what the MEP services are and do clash detection so that you can actually be comfortable with the programs as well as the mindset about how to see things, right? And so you need to understand things like the MEP hierarchy clash coordination, the basic clash coordination, advanced clash coordination, plan room access coordination, louver facade coordination, buildability, reflected ceiling plan coordination. These are all advanced topics when it comes to clash detection, which you need to know. Otherwise, you'll never be able to become a BIM coordinator because you won't know these programs. You'll know the programs, but you won't know how to speak to anyone, do the job interviews. They'll ask you questions which you won't know how to understand about MEP stuff, and you won't be able to even run a coordination meeting, even if you do get it, right? So if you want to learn this stuff, I've actually explained the whole process in a video. I'll link it down right below. This is about how to learn the BIM coordination skill set, and I actually talk about like the MEP clashes and how the whole clash coordination process works. There, so click that video and you can watch that. If you want a detailed breakdown of my three-phase BIM blueprint, message me the word BIM on Instagram or book a call down below and we can have a chat and see if it's something that's going to help you. Speak to you in the next one.